In some of my previous videos, I've shown you how to use the graphing calculator not only to graph functions, but to solve trigonometric and algebraic equations, evaluate determinants, solve problems with involving matrix algebra, and other types of problems. However, in order to get the most out of your calculator, you want to try to avoid some of the common errors. Keep in mind your calculator is going to respond, give you answers based on the input data that you provide. If you provide that data incorrectly or hit the wrong keys, it's not going to give you the answer that you're expecting. So let me go over some of these with you. Let's suppose I want to find what -2 squared is on the calculator. So I'll put parentheses and I'll put a minus and then a 2, and then I'll square that. And notice I get an error, syntax error. So here's the problem with this. Notice here in the keys there's a negative in parentheses and there's a minus over here. This minus over here in blue is a subtraction, and this is to indicate the number is negative. So if I want to square a -2, I need to use this one. Parentheses, square. There you go. Now notice again, if I put a -2 and then square that, I didn't put parentheses. So the calculator is going to square the 2 and then it's going to take the negative of that. So in this case, it's going to come out to a -4. So keep that in mind. If you don't put parentheses, you're not squaring the -2, you're squaring the 2 and then taking the negative of that. The calculator will give you some hints as to whether your operation is correct. For example, if I hit 1 divided by 0, I get error, divide by 0. Dividing by 0 is undefined. Or if I hit, say, log of -2, again, error, non-real, answer. The log of a negative is not defined. So your calculator will give you some hints as to if what you're doing is correct or not. Notice let's do some matrix, inverse of matrix. So let's suppose I want the inverse of this matrix. So I'm entering the matrix, the components of the matrix. And this is one way to do it. You can use the matrix menu, which I went over in one of my other videos. So if you want to see some of those videos, click on the channel name and you'll access some of those videos. I also have some other videos in my other channel. That's the Tony Pereira channel, and that's Pereida. Okay, so let's suppose I want to find the inverse of the matrix, the first row is 1, 2, and the second row is 1, 2. Based on what I showed you in other videos, all I have to do is hit this key right here, x to the -1, puts a negative there, and if this has an inverse, multiplicative inverse, by putting this value here and hitting enter, it'll give it to me. But if I do it, it gives me an error. So the matrix that I actually have has no inverse. It's called a singular matrix, so the inverse of that matrix does not exist. So the calculator will tell you that. Sometimes you're solving equations, it'll give you an error maybe when you're solving the equation. Again, that will tell you that the equation has no solution. Or sometimes the operation is not defined. For example, 1 divided by 0. Okay. Now, some other things I want to go over again on graphs in general. So let's look at the first example that I have here. Let's suppose I wanted to graph this f of x is equal to 1 over x plus 2. So I come over here and clear this. And let me enter the function. So here's the deal. if I put 1 divide and then I put x plus 2 and then I go to graph, that's the wrong graph. Okay, so notice what I have here. I entered this. This is the function is f of x is equal to 1 over x plus 2. So the denominator is x plus 2, but the way I wrote it, the calculator will read this as 1 divided by x plus 2. So you're graphing the function 1 over x plus 2, not 1 over x plus 2. So if you want it this way, we need to insert parentheses. So put parentheses. So put parentheses there, and then parentheses over here. Okay, now my denominator is x plus 2. The way I had it is, again, 1 over x plus 2. So you could graph the function 1 over x and then lift it up 2 units, and that would give you the graph of that without the parentheses. And let me put braces here. I need parentheses, so parentheses. Okay, then I hit graph. And that's this graph, because notice the denominator is x plus 2, so at negative 2, you get negative 2 plus 2 is 0, so this function is undefined at negative 2. So you would expect a vertical asymptote, which is what we have here, a vertical asymptote. So you have to be careful. So when in doubt, put parentheses. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay. Consider the function f of x is equal to x to the 5th minus 3x to the 4th plus 4x to the 3rd minus 2x squared plus 3x. And we're going to graph this. So let's come back over here and let's enter it. Okay, so this will be x to the 5th minus 3x to the 4th plus 4x to the 3rd minus 2x squared plus 3x. So let's just verify this at x to the 5th minus 3x to the 4th plus 4x to the 3rd minus 2x squared plus 3x. Okay, so we want to graph it. We just hit graph. Okay, so we have the graph. So it looks like it crosses. The x-axis at one point only. So it has one x intercept. Now you can do a lot of things with a function once you enter it here. So on this one it asks you to find. Let's go back down. Graph f of x. So we just did that. Find f of 0. So that's it. Means find the value of the function at 0. So replace the x by 0. So put a 0 everywhere the x is, but because 0 times anything is 0, of course the answer is going to come out to 0. Okay, so this one's pretty straightforward. But you can do it this way. Hit second, trace, we're accessing the calculate menu, and then we want the value of the function at a certain number, so let's enter 1. And then, okay, we want the value at 0, so type in a 0. And there it is. The value of the function right here, y equal to 0, which of course is at that particular point right there. So that one is pretty straightforward. You don't need the calculator for that. However, the second one, or the next one, it says find f of negative 4. Okay, so there's the answer, f of negative 4. So that means if you're going to do this manually, you would put a negative 4 right where the x is. Here we put an x over here. negative 4 to the 5th power, and then here negative 4 to the 4th, then times negative 3, negative 4 to the 3rd, then times 4, negative 4 squared, then times a minus 2, negative 4 times 3, and if you do all that calculation, you'll get this number here, negative 2092. But notice it's much easier if I do it the way I did the last one. If I go to second, again, hit the trace key, and I want value again, hit 1, and then type in the negative 4, so negative 4, and then hit enter. And there's the value, negative 2092. Now you can also compute this type of value other ways. Like this, just evaluating a function in a certain number. You can use the store key also to do this, but it's convenient. If you're going to graph it, you can easily get it from the graph. Now the last one says find the real zeros of f of x. Find the real zeros of f of x. It says real zeros because the function can have imaginary zeros. Okay, so if you look at the graph, the zeros basically correspond to your x-intercepts. So if you look at this graph, it only crosses the x-axis at the point right there. And if you double check this, go to your table, second, and then here, graph. But because I hit the second key, I'm accessing the table. So notice at x equal to 0, y is equal to 0. So those are the zeros of the function. Okay. Wherever the y value is 0, the number, the x value corresponding to that is going to be a 0. So if this had been, here I have 1, 3, if that had been, say, 1, 0, 1, 0, then that would tell me that the graph crosses the x-axis at 1, 0. So 1 would be a 0. Or if the next one, instead of 2, 14, that would be, say, 2 and 0. That would tell me again that the point 2, 0 is another x-intercept. So since the value of 2 makes the function 0, that would be considered a 0, so 2 would be a 0. In this case, there's only one number that makes the value of the function 0, and that is x equal to 0. So for the real zeros of the function, it's x equal to 0. Okay, it's just again just to remind you about the different types of common errors that are made. So make sure that you enter your components on the calculator correctly. Another thing I want to point out also is always check your mode. That's going to be important, especially if you work in trigonometry. If you're working with degrees, you want it set to degrees. If you're working with radians, you want to set this to radians. So there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of if you're using the graphing calculator. And like I said, there's a lot of videos that I've already done on this channel and also on my Tony Payton channel. So I hope you take some time to look at those. And if you have any comments, please post them. If you have any recommendations for videos, again, I will consider those suggestions if you subscribe to my channel, and I really appreciate it if you do. And we'll see you in the next video.